Discover the 6 hidden garlic mistakes seniors must avoid for amazing health transformation. Martha's kitchen was a symphony of scents, an orchestra of garlic sautéing into a delicious melody. The sun dipped low outside, casting long shadows through her windows. As she stirred, she thought of the joy her family would feel tonight, gathered around the table, a rapt audience to her culinary legacy. She could picture her daughter's delighted eyes and her grandson's laughter. Yet, beneath the golden warmth of these thoughts, a whisper of doubt twisted in her chest. Every cough and ache had begun to feel heavier, her movements slower, her mind flickering with worry. What if tonight was too much? She brushed aside the thought. Her energy surged as she remembered the promise of connection, of love shared over meals. The very reason she fought to keep tradition alive even as her children exchanged worried glances and layered suggestions for simpler meals. Pre-made options? Was that really what they thought she needed? A spark ignited in Martha, a fierce determination to prove herself. She'd embark on a culinary journey. Yes, she would respect her legacy, but make it healthier. But as she rifled through her late mother's attic, a surge of nostalgia welcomed her before reality set in. The yellowed pages of a family recipe book were marred with outdated health tips. Discover the secrets of garlic. The words echoed in her mind. But what if these were the very things keeping her from thriving? Tension gripped her stomach as she reread the familiar recipes. She felt the weight of relics from a time when health was a guessing game. How could she reconcile half-truths from the past with the glaring truths of modern knowledge? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she gazed at the chaotic array of ingredients on her countertop, Martha felt a ripple of agitation. Would her love of these flavors betray her? She hunched over her cutting board, hands trembling. Shouldn't her cooking symbolize both her past and present? But misinformation lurked in garlic's seductive aroma, tempting her into familiar traps. The intensity of her resolve clashed with an almost instinctual fear. How could she teach old recipes new tricks when her own body was a test of endurance? Panic clawed at her throat. The doorbell's chime cut through her spiraling thoughts, bringing her back to the moment. The very act of opening that door could change everything. Her heart raced, the hope of joy and the anxiety of her looming missteps mixing into an electrifying cocktail of anticipation. She swung it open, finding her children's beaming faces, their smiles masking tremors of worry. Martha's breath caught. Could she bridge the gap between past and present? The kitchen stirred with the ghosts of meals long savored, yet visions of new knowledge chimed loudly within her, a cocktail of determination, despair, and an intense yearning to prove herself. As she stood surrounded by the joyful chaos of family, the shake of uncertainty threatened to drown her, igniting a quiet storm within. Would tonight's dinner be a bridge to a new understanding or a shattering of her pride? As she turned back to the stove, the weight of her decisions hung over her like a dark cloud, waiting for release. Martha took a deep breath, steadying herself against the tide of uncertainty. Her children bustled around the kitchen, setting the table and carrying in dishes, their movements brisk yet filled with an underlying tension. Focus, she told herself, a mantra threaded through her thoughts. She would use this dinner as a canvas, painting it with colors of her heritage but infused with the vibrant hues of modern understanding. As she diced onions, the sharp scent cutting through the warmth of garlic, clarity began to seep into her mind. She could blend the wisdom of her upbringing with the insights she gleaned from her research. But apprehension quickly surged. Was she truly prepared to confront the ghosts of her culinary past? Each slice of onion felt like a strike against her previous self, shrouded in years of unquestioned tradition. "Mom, are you okay?" Her daughter's voice pierced through Martha's introspection. She glanced up to see concern etched on her daughter's face, the familiar worry morphing into an overwhelming tide. "I'm fine," she replied, a bit more sharply than intended. The truth was, She felt anything but fine. Her heart raced with the pressure of her experiment. "You've got this, Martha," she whispered under her breath, forcing herself to remember that she was not alone. As the aroma of cooking garlic spiced the air, she acknowledged that this was the very terrain she'd navigated her whole life. Yet now, it wasn't simply about preserving a recipe. It was about evolution fueled by love. When she finally added turmeric to the simmering pot of spice her mother had never used, Martha felt a surge of empowerment. With one simple change, she defied the idea that healthful cooking had to be old-fashioned or mundane. This was her moment to redefine not just a meal, but her identity as a cook and a matriarch. Each new ingredient symbolized a choice, a break from the chains of outdated wisdom. But with each decision came a nagging doubt. Could these innovations be met with open arms, or would they trigger resistance and the churning of family loyalties? The possibility that her family's expectations could clash with her experimentation weighed heavily on her. As they gathered around the table, Martha sensed the trembling in her hands. She served the dishes, watching her family's expressions transform from curiosity to skepticism as they focused on the vibrant, unfamiliar colors. Her grandson, oblivious to the tension, scooped a heaping portion, his laughter bubbling over and drowning out the stillness. "Wow, Grandma, what's this?" His eyes sparkled with delight as he tasted the flavorful twists on the old favorites. The room shifted, absorbing the buoyant energy radiating from him. That spark lit a flicker of hope in Martha. Perhaps they would embrace her journey rather than merely endure it. But as she took her first bite, a counterpoint of flavors dancing on her palate, a sideways glance from her daughter rooted her to the spot. Martha chewed slowly, mentally preparing for the critique that might follow. "So, what do you think?" she asked, holding her breath. The pause felt electric, and just as her daughter opened her mouth to respond, the doorbell rang again. The interruption thundered in the quiet air, pulling Martha back to the present. With each chime, anxiety crept back into the forefront of her thoughts. Who else was at the door? Would they embrace her changes or sully the atmosphere with doubt? In that moment, a wave of determination enveloped her. Martha could no longer shy away from the challenge of evolving her legacy. She would face whatever arrived with an open heart and a fortified spirit. With her family gathered and flavors swirling in the air, she resolved to nurture her culinary identity into something more robust. As she moved toward the door, the pounding of her heart echoed in the silence, deadened only by the stakes she could no longer ignore. Who stood on the other side of that door? Would they support her evolution or complicate her journey further into uncertainty? Martha paused momentarily, hand resting on the doorknob, the laughter and chatter fading to a distant murmur. The unknown presence beyond the door could shift the fragile equilibrium she was just beginning to establish within her family. Did she truly have the fortitude to embrace whatever lay ahead? Slowly, she pulled the door open, revealing a familiar figure cloaked in a mantle of mixed emotions. Her sister, Elaine, stood there, eyes flickering with surprise and a hint of warmth, yet overshadowed by an unspoken conflict. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said, hesitating as if unsure whether to step in. In that split second, Martha felt the weight of years of familial expectations pressing against her, intertwining with the uncertainty of her new culinary adventure. Would Elaine stand by her, recognizing the evolution of what their family tradition could be, or would she represent the very resistance Martha feared? "Not at all," Martha replied, forcing a cheerful smile that felt slightly one-dimensional. She ushered Elaine inside, hoping her enthusiasm wouldn't come off as forced. Martha caught sight of her daughter, still awaiting affirmation about the meal, her face a portrait of anxious hope, reflected in the vibrant colors of the dishes that now seemed to swell with insecurities. As they sat down, the air thick with an amalgamation of curiosity and trepidation, Martha felt her heart race once more. Elaine glanced at the spread before them, brow furrowing slightly. "What's this?" she queried, her tone veering somewhere between inquisitive and condescending. Martha's defenses instinctively rose, but she tempered her response with the resolve she had prepared herself for when opening the door. "It's a twist on the classics, Elaine. I'm experimenting a bit with our family recipes." Her sister's lips compressed into a line, and Martha held her breath. This was the moment of reckoning the clash of generations. Martha had spent years in Elaine's shadow, always viewed as the one who clung to the past while Elaine had embraced the present. Resentment bubbled within Martha, urging her to defend her choices as though she had to justify her very being. But instead of hostility, Elaine raised an eyebrow, a flicker of intrigue sparking in her expression. "Okay, I'm listening," she said, tension easing marginally. Their exchange, tentative and laden with the history of sibling rivalry, created a dynamic charge in the room. As Martha began to explain her decisions, detailing the incorporation of vibrant spices and healthier alternatives, she noticed her children's eyes swapping uncertain glances. This was it. The delicate balance could tip either way. Martha showcased her dishes with a passion she didn't even know she possessed. Each story unfolded like a narrative woven with memories mingled with newfound wisdom. "I think we can keep our heritage alive without being locked in it," she emphasized, her voice gaining strength. Elaine tasted each bite, eyebrows furrowing as she contemplated a world devoid of their mother's time-honored methods. The silence hung heavy until finally, a smile crept onto her lips. "You might be onto something here, Martha." The crack of approval ignited a warmth inside her, yet it was closely followed by a quiet fear of backlash from the others' unknown opinions lurking beneath the surface. Would their acceptance remain unchanged? Martha's newfound spirit began to reveal itself, slowly shifting the focus from loyalty to discovery. She realized that confronting her past did not mean shunning it, it meant transforming it. However, she was acutely aware that Elaine's approval could not guarantee the same from her children or the wider family front. Just as laughter began to break the tensions, her grandson piped up, "Can we add more of that orange spice next time, Grandma?" The heat of expectation was shifting back to her, and she held their faces in her mind, the bright curiosity of her grandson and the cautious skepticism of her daughter. Would they continue to support her exploration, or would they retreat back to the safety of tradition? As Martha sat there, her own thoughts swirling like the flavors on her plates, a realization dawned. She had stepped away from being merely a vessel for the past, and in doing so, she was forging a path to a deeper understanding of what it could mean to adapt and innovate as a family unit. But as she reached for the next words, hoping to bridge the divide, she felt another hesitation creep into her resolve. Would this moment of acceptance be fleeting, or could it set a precedent for future meals? The very foundation of her identity as a matriarch and chef was at stake, resting on the shimmering edge of uncertainty. And just as conversations began to flow more freely, the doorbell rang again. Reinvigorating the tension, the thoughts surged within her. Who would enter now, and what new challenges would they present to her evolving table? Martha's heart dropped as the doorbell echoed through the dining room, a sharp reminder that her moment of familial intimacy was still at the mercy of external influences. The laughter around the table stuttered to a halt, everyone's eyes darting towards her, unspoken questions hanging in the air like steam rising from the freshly cooked dishes. Before she could articulate her thoughts, the door creaked open to reveal her eldest son, Michael, his expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Hey, everyone, I brought a friend," he announced, stepping past the threshold. The exuberance in his voice immediately pervaded the tense atmosphere, but he caught sight of Martha's unease. "What's up? You look like you just saw a ghost." "No, not a ghost. More like a specter of her past," Martha thought, bracing herself for the potential disruption. "It's nothing," she replied, her smile faltering. "Just getting used to this new direction." Michael stepped further inside, and trailing behind him was a college friend named Sarah. With a vibrant personality that lit up the room, Sarah instantly drew everyone's attention, her laughter pealing like music. She made a beeline for the table, eyes wide with curiosity at the spread that lay before them. "Wow, this looks incredible," she exclaimed, the compliment floating in the air like an invitation, magnifying Martha's insecurities. "Thanks," Martha muttered, suppressing the urge to retreat into her shell. Efforts to blend her culinary heritage and new skills were still tentative, and the thought of a guest's judgment sent her resolve oscillating. Sarah leaned over for a closer inspection, delighting in the colorful dishes. "I've never seen such a take on your family's recipes, Michael. This is your mom's thing?" Sarah's questioning tone felt both curious and teasing, adding another layer to Martha's personal turmoil. Yes, Martha stumbled over her words, feeling the weight of reputation pressing against her like a snowstorm. I have been trying new things. It's, a work in progress. Michael grinned, his youthful enthusiasm bathing her in warmth, yet also reminding her of the stakes involved. Would her children embrace her culinary evolution, or were they merely trying to appease her with forced support? Sarah collected a sampling of dishes onto her plate, savoring each bite as if transported to another world, while Martha's thoughts tumbled over one another. Elaine gave Martha a sideways glance, her expression one of camaraderie, as if silently communicating their shared journey. Still, uncharted waters loomed ahead. Martha's efforts were slowly becoming scrutinized under the collective gaze of family and guests, and she felt an inner conflict brewing. The external affirmation was intoxicating, yet the fear of rejection from those she loved most clawed at her confidence. As the meal progressed, conversations flowed easily, threads of laughter weaving through shared stories and familial banter. Yet, beneath the surface, anxieties simmered. The possibility of critique lingered in the air, an unwelcome specter at the feast. When dessert was finally served, a modern twist on the family's traditional apple pie, Martha felt a sense of vulnerability wash over her. The crust was golden and flaky, the filling fragrant with cinnamon and zest, yet she could think only of her past, of what her mother would have done, and of how it might stand against her chosen innovation. "Mom, I can't wait to try this," her daughter chimed in, slicing into the pie. Her voice, lively yet edged with caution, brought Martha's gaze sharply to her. If even one child could appreciate the divergence, perhaps it was worth the gamble. She pinched her resolve, reminding herself that progress demanded risk. "Tell me what you think," she encouraged, heart racing as she prepared to face the verdict. The empty chatter fell to silence again. It was as if the air electric with suspense. As the first bite was swallowed, the world slowed. Would admiration triumph, or would disappointment carve a chasm in the familial bonds she was beginning to mend? But just before her daughter opened her mouth to speak, a sharp knock echoed through the room, a very different tone than the gentle chime of the doorbell. The sudden intrusion felt like a thunderclap, sending tremors through the atmosphere, and Martha's stomach twisted. She exchanged glances with Elaine, both of them straining for a hint of what lay beyond. Whatever awaited them now, it could shatter the fragile equilibrium or, perhaps, propel her journey to confrontations and growth she hadn't yet dared to imagine. Who or what was at the threshold now to challenge her dream of a culinary renaissance within her family? Martha stood frozen for a moment, the sharp knock echoing in her head, mingling with the cacophony of her unresolved tensions. The festive atmosphere felt as fragile as the crust of her pie, and in that blink of hesitation, she realized the knock held more than mere interruption. It was a gateway to yet another layer of her evolving identity. "Who could that be?" Michael asked, tilting his head in curiosity as the others cast side glances toward the sound. Martha's thoughts began racing. She had steeled herself for criticism from her family, but now she braced for an unexpected visitor that could shift the trajectory of her night completely. "Perhaps someone is lost," suggested Elaine, trying to keep the mood light, but Martha noticed the slight furrow in her brow. Everyone at the table had their own complexities woven into this moment, and now they all felt the weight of it bearing down. With a cautious breath, Martha stepped toward the door, each footfall resonating with the rhythm of her escalating doubts. The notion that she could find the strength to embrace criticism and evolve was tangled with the fear of what or whom she might confront. Would it be another evaluator of her cooking, or something that provoked a deeper, unsettling reflection? Outside, she paused before opening the door. The voices of her family fell away as she grappled with peeled layers of herself. What if the newcomer disapproved, exposed an insecurity within? She could already hear it. "You call this progress?" The thought filled her with dread, yet beneath the fear lay a flicker of resolve. Whatever challenged her would also illuminate her path forward. Martha finally turned the knob and swung the door open. To her surprise, it was her younger brother, Rob, whose face lit up with an unexpected grin, albeit with an air of solemnity underneath. "Martha, long time." His enthusiasm felt like a balm to her frayed nerves, yet she couldn't shake the sense of impending turbulence. He stepped over the threshold, and for a brief moment, it felt like a reunion, a breath of fresh air in a suffocating room. "Rob, what a surprise!" She started, uncertain if she should embrace him or gather her composure. Still processing the implications of his arrival, she waved him inside. "Hey, everyone! Smells amazing in here," he declared, but Martha noticed his gaze shift towards the pie, his eyebrows arching almost in judgment. She tensed, the taste of vulnerability returning as if it were a bitter spice. "I hope it's not too different," Martha said, attempting to quell the swell of emotions muddling her thoughts. "I've been trying some new techniques." "Great. What kind of techniques?" Rob asked, feigning ignorance as if he had no idea this was a loaded question in that moment. The boys exchanged banter, but Martha felt her confidence wobble on a tightrope, the old fears whispering their familiar critiques. "I think it's important to step out of traditional methods," she began, her voice wavering slightly, as if seeking validation she wasn't ready to demand. "But I'm still getting used to it." She could feel the weight of her family's expectations etching into the fray of her determination. But Rob flashed her a reassuring smile. "It's about growth, right? We all have to evolve." His words struck a chord, resonating deep within her, igniting a flicker of defiance against the specters of self-doubt. Maybe this night was more than just about her culinary results. Perhaps this was also about a reckoning with the past, a defining moment where her evolution inadvertently collided with her family's expectations. Suddenly, her daughter broke in. "So, Aunt Rob, which dish are you trying first?" Silence draped over the table again, all eyes flitting between Rob and the pie, a newfound anticipation brewing, as if they were spectators to a defining act. Taking a deep breath, Martha connected her rising anxiety with a hard-earned resolve. Perhaps Rob's unexpected arrival wasn't a hindrance, but a signal. How would she navigate this family dynamic, this complex intersection of tradition and innovation? The outcome of this moment could either affirm her resolve or fracture it further. Yet, just as Rob prepared to take his first bite, another sharp knock at the door resonated, louder this time, a summons urgent and unrelenting. Who could possibly join this anticipation now? Martha's breath caught in her throat. She drew strength from the moment, the tension thickening around them, aware that every new encounter could signal another step in her gradual transformation. Would this next visitor endanger her fragile progression, or would they challenge her to assert her evolving identity even further? Martha's heart raced as she turned towards the door, the atmosphere in the room thick with expectation. The sharp knock amplified her anxiety, a prelude to another challenge she would have to face. As Rob raised the fork, his eyes glinting with humorous curiosity, Martha felt the weight of both family history and personal ambition pinch at her resolve. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, both anticipating and dreading who stood beyond the threshold. The moment seemed to stretch, a psychological pause packed with possibility and apprehension. Who could it be? Another family member, possibly carrying judgment, or perhaps someone entirely unexpected. With a purposeful motion, she yanked the door open. The surprised gasp that escaped her lips echoed the reaction of her family. Standing there was Jenny, her former mentor from culinary school, the woman who had incentivized her passion for cooking and challenged her to think beyond the conventional flavors of home-cooked meals. The air shifted, thick with nostalgia and the tension of unresolved feelings. "Martha," Jenny said, her voice warm but edged with authority. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." With a hasty smile, Martha gestured for Jenny to enter, her mind racing with the implications of this encounter. It had been years, yet here was the embodiment of her aspirations, the very face of her earlier dreams now reappearing just as she dared to redefine them. Would her presence bolster Martha's resolve or unsettle it further? The familial air shifted, suspicion flitting through the room like a shadow. Martha could feel Rob's gaze, laced with curiosity. Her daughter's innocent enthusiasm softened the tension, but also added layers of scrutiny. Jenny's penetrating eyes swept around, landing softly on the pie. "I came by to see how you've been progressing," she said, her tone both a subtle challenge and encouragement rolled into one. Martha's cheeks heated at the scrutiny. "I've been experimenting with new techniques," she answered, her voice steadier than she felt. "Good. That's exactly what you should be doing." Jenny smiled but continued, "But what kind of techniques? How have you evolved?" Martha straightened up, fiercely aware of her own growth, but still unsettled by the specter of expectations in the room. "I'm trying to incorporate more modern methods into traditional recipes. Respect the essence of the dish but elevate it," she said, feeling the energy around her shift as she spoke. "Elevating recipes can be a double-edged sword," Jenny replied, her eyebrows raised, inviting a deeper discussion. "Have you found that your approach resonates with your family, or have you faced pushback?" Martha hesitated, the truth lingering at the tip of her tongue. "It's been complicated." The words fell heavy. "They appreciate tradition, but I want to grow." This, she gestured toward the pie, marks the beginning. As the night unfolded, a battle raged within her. With Jenny's probing questions, Martha felt herself on the edge of revelation. She grappled with the desire to prove herself not only to her family, but also to her mentor. Could she stand firm while smoothing the jagged edges of her ambitions? Rob set down his fork, sensing the burgeoning tension. "Jenny, we could use your expertise here." Martha's been pushing her boundaries. A flicker of hope ignited within Martha. If she could navigate this discussion, maybe she could express her vision without caving to familial expectations. The air buzzed with potential, yet underneath loomed a fear of judgment, the chilling thought of becoming a target for critique. "Okay, so, let us taste it," Jenny suggested, her eyes filled with both enthusiasm and challenge. At that moment, the stakes swelled. This wasn't just about feedback. It was about identity, growth, and the courage to stand her ground amidst conflict. As Jenny took her first bite, all eyes focused on her. Would acceptance follow, or would she elevate Martha's internal struggle further? The answer loomed, pregnant with the possibility of not just culinary critique, but truths unearthing. The very core of who Martha was becoming. And then the unexpected, a phone buzzed. Melissa's name flashing across Martha's screen, a sudden reminder that the night was far from over. Was it the familial support she longed for, or another challenge to meet head-on? Martha's fingers danced over her phone, a hesitant flicker of anxiety rippling through her. The familiar name felt like both a lifeline and a potential anchor, pulling her back into the tumult of family dynamics. Her heart quickened as Jenny's gaze panned from the pie to the screen, a knowing look passing between them. "Shouldn't you answer that?" Jenny urged, tilting her head slightly. The challenge in her tone was unmistakable. "You might need to confront whatever is waiting on the other side." Taking a steadying breath, Martha ultimately decided to let the call go to voicemail. She knew this wasn't just about dessert. It was a turning point, an opportunity to stake her claim in the profession she had longed to conquer. "I will," Martha assured herself, but the thought of her daughter Melissa, with her always predictable blend of exuberance and entitlement, loomed large. Jenny's analytical eyes were still trained on her. "Tell me, what do you want?" Martha considered the question, her mind racing through familial bonds and her own burgeoning identity. "I want to create something that reflects where I'm going, something that fits both my roots and my dreams. But it's hard when everyone around me is holding expectations that seem set in stone." Jenny nodded, a flicker of respect crossing her face. "What if you framed your innovations as a bridge instead? You could present them as a way to honor the past while stepping into a new future." The idea ignited a spark within Martha, but internal doubts drowned it out. Would they even accept that? She challenged, eyes flickering to Rob and Bailey, whose expressions hung somewhere between confusion and skepticism. "Have you asked them?" Jenny countered, the question hitting Martha like a splash of cold water. It wasn't an avenue she had explored. Her family had never been invited to co-create her vision. They had merely been spectators, often critics. "I suppose I could try," she replied slowly, the thought beginning to churn. "That's the first step," Jenny encouraged, leaning forward. "You establish a dialogue about what you envision, rather than framing it as abandoning tradition. You want their input." Martha felt the weight of her longing, complex and twisted. Wanting validation from her family clashed with her innate desire for independence in her craft. Yet what if this was the turning point? Reaching forward towards her family, an acknowledgement of both their influence and her own burgeoning identity could build bridges. With newfound determination, she turned her attention back to the pie, her hands subtly shifting its warm crust with a renewed purpose. She could feel the energy shift in the room. It was a catalyst for introspection. Rob finally spoke, breaking the silence. Are you planning to change every meal we have? Or is it just lately? The skepticism in his voice was like a thin barrier waiting to collapse under Martha's resolve. What if I want to try it out? Her reply was sharp, fueled by the internal fire building within her. What if I want to wrestle a bit with tradition? I want to know you're on board with me, not just a passive owner of my past. With her chest tight, Martha sensed that this was her moment to fully embrace her transformation. She needed to reassure her family that embracing a different pace in the kitchen did not mean leaving them behind. It could mean a future filled with innovation cultivated through collaboration. Jenny leaned back, an approving grin creeping onto her face. See, it's not just about cooking. It's about forging connections, redefining what it means to share a meal. Martha met her family's gaze, each of them bearing a semblance of uncertainty. The moment built upon itself, an unspoken truce hovering in the air. Then, the phone buzzed again, louder this time, demanding her attention. A second call now. Uncertainty flooded her mind with potential repercussions. As she glanced at the screen, another name appeared. This time it was her mother, their past fraught with whispers of discontent. Did she dare answer? Or would confronting her own familial legacy unravel the thread of courage she had just begun to weave? The decision loomed like the horizon before a storm, and for the first time in a long while, Martha felt poised to decide. Would this moment affirm her identity, or could it plunge her deeper into the turbulence of expectation? Martha's mind raced as the phone buzzed insistently, the voice of her mother echoing through years steeped in complicated memories. Each pulse of the device felt like a lightning strike, illuminating the hidden corners of her upbringing, where expectations suffocated authenticity. She hesitated, her heart hammering against her ribcage. Would the courage she found with Jenny dissipate if she picked up? Or was there a power in answering that she had yet to acknowledge? Clenching her jaw, she swiped to answer, each swirl of uncertainty fueling her resolve. Hello? The word came out firmer than she felt. Martha, is that you? Her mother's voice was a distant familiarity, tangled with past grievances and unspoken truths. What do you need? Martha's tone was curt, more an assertion of control than a request for clarity. How have you been? It's been a while. A soft undertone coated her mother's words, a familiarity that once made Martha feel safe, but now felt laced with intrusion. I've been busy, she replied, almost defensively. Busy trying to carve out her own space. Busy attempting to redefine her cooking and her life. Silence loomed between them like a graveyard of unspoken hurt. Memories flooded back of family dinners spent in a fog of tension, each culinary creation scrutinized under the weight of critique. Are you still planning to do whatever it is you're doing with the food? Her mother's question felt like an invitation to defensiveness, an opening for old arguments she had tried to bury. Martha took a breath, refusing to let anger dictate her responses. I'm trying to bring something new to the table, she stated, a layer of pride creeping into her voice. Can you understand that? I just worry you'll forget what it means to be part of this family. The statement hung heavily, filled with disappointment and a commentary on loyalty versus innovation. Martha's chest tightened, recognizing an old pattern. Her mother's resistance to change had always manifested as concern, but this time, Martha refused to be painted as a villain in the story of her own life. I'm not forgetting. I'm building. There's room for both. Despite the discomfort creeping into the air, she felt another flicker of determination. Jenny's previous words rang in her mind. This was a dialogue, an opportunity to validate her vision within the family context. What if we approach this together? I want to explore the history our meals hold, but I also want to innovate. Her mother stuttered, possibly caught off guard by the openness. So you want me to help? Martha's heart raced. This could be the pivotal moment she longed for, a bridge between the old and new. Her vision of community, redefined through collaboration, might not be as alien to her mother as she assumed. Yes, I think we could find a way to blend our influences. But a shadow of doubt flickered in her mind, the ghosts of past trials reminding her just how fragile openness could be. She had attempted to bridge this particular gap before, only to feel isolated and dismissed. If you're willing, I think this would be a great opportunity. Martha felt raw as she spoke, the honesty pouring out of her. The desire to connect while safeguarding her identity surged within. Would this attempt to reach out yield the acceptance she had always sought? Okay, her mother's voice cracked through the line, a reluctant yes laced with uncertainty. Let us see what you have in mind. As they began to discuss a possible meeting, Martha felt the weight of years adding both pressure and hope. It was not only a professional endeavor, it was an attempt to reshape the familial tensions into something more palatable. With every word exchanged, she reveled in this newfound empowerment. But the looming consequences of their conversation nudged at her consciousness like a haunting refrain. Could she truly alter the trajectory of their relationship? As she wrapped up the call, the possibility of success ignited a swirl of excitement so deeply intertwined with anxiety that it left her dizzy. Martha glanced at her family, who had remained watchful during the call. She could sense that their perceptions had shifted slightly, even if just a fraction. Perhaps, for every bridge recently built, there were new ones just waiting to be erected. But just as determination began to bloom inside her, the realization struck. This was merely the beginning. The true challenge lay ahead, confronting the nuanced realities of family, tradition, and ambition. And as she set the phone down, another notification pinged, this time a text from Melissa, her daughter. The urgent tone sent a fresh wave of uncertainty crashing through her. What would Melissa expect from her? Opening the message, Martha felt the weight of another impending confrontation. Would she be able to maintain the delicate balance of ambition and familial duty, or would tradition once again threaten to overshadow her pursuits? Martha stared at the screen, her mind racing through the implications of her daughter's message. The words were simple. "Can we talk, Mom? I need your advice." But the underlying tension sent her heart into a spiral. What kind of advice did Melissa need? What expectations lay beneath that seemingly innocuous request? Glancing at the clock, Martha realized that time was slipping away. The morning sunlight bathed the kitchen in a warm glow that felt reassuring but also intimidating. It was both a perfect day for reflection and an ominous reminder of the impending conversation with her mother. Hadn't she just taken a step toward embracing her own culinary journey? Now, she faced another potential conflict, which could either fortify her resolve or unravel her newfound courage. Her mind wrestled with conflicting thoughts. Would Melissa seek her approval as she often did in the past, or was she looking for something deeper? Perhaps she wanted guidance on how to navigate her own ambitions in a family that frequently prioritized tradition over exploration. The idea made Martha pause. This was her chance not just to bring change within her relationship with her mother, but to empower her daughter to forge her path alongside her. Taking a deep breath, she opened her kitchen notebook, filled with scribbles of recipes, ideas, and reflections. Perhaps it was time to refine her vision, to develop a culinary framework that melded personal ambition and familial heritage. But how could she present this to Melissa? Would she be seen as too critical, too distant, or too ambitious for her daughter to understand? The ticking clock kept pace, each second amplifying the urgency simmering within her. She thought of the food she had been passionately reinventing, considering how those creations reflected her journey. Maybe the conversation starts there, she thought. A dialogue about food as a medium for connection. It was a chance for both her and Melissa to show that they could navigate familial expectations without losing their identities in the process. When the phone buzzed with another message from Melissa, less than patient this time, Martha couldn't delay any longer. "Okay, I'm ready," she told herself, steeling her resolve. She replied, suggesting a time for them to meet at a nearby cafe somewhere less charged than home, but still familiar. As she prepared for the conversation, Martha noticed her hands trembling slightly, a physical manifestation of her internal conflict. Could she be the mother she always wanted to be while remaining true to herself? With her heart racing, she skimmed the notes in her mind, focusing on all the lessons she had learned recently about authenticity, about creating a legacy forged from both her past and her aspirations. The thought ignited a fire within her. She realized that while she had always seen family meals as a battleground, they could be a sanctuary of evolution where both personal and familial narratives coalesced naturally. This new perspective shifted her apprehension into excitement, sparking a vision of sitting across from Melissa, sharing not just meals, but hoping to share strategies, culinary ones that transcended old dialogues and fostered new narratives. Arriving at the cafe, Martha felt the weight of expectations shift. Her mother's phone call had forced open a door she had thought might remain closed forever. Now, confronting Melissa became less about defending her choices and more about sharing a vision they could create together. As she spotted Melissa entering, a rush of adrenaline surged through Martha. Could she encourage her daughter to pursue her passions without the oppressive shadow of tradition looming over them? Would they discover how deeply they could connect through the joys and complexities of culinary exploration together? Before she could overthink it, she smiled and waved. But as Melissa approached, a worried expression creased her brow, unraveling the warmth Martha thought might radiate between them. "Mom, I really need to talk about something important," she said, urgency echoing in her tone. Martha felt her resolve tested once again. The air was thick with potential misunderstanding. Would they emerge as a united front, or would this encounter fracture under the strain of inherited expectations? "Of course, honey. What is on your mind?" Martha replied, keeping her voice steady. Inside, her heart raced, questioning what revelations awaited them both in this crucial moment of connection. Martha sat across from Melissa in the cozy cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries wafting between them. As she looked at her daughter, she could feel the weight of expectations pressing down on both of them, a blend of tradition, ambition, and unexplored paths intertwining like the intricate brushstrokes of a vibrant painting. Too often, their conversations had been overshadowed by unspoken tensions, but today was different. She was ready to embrace vulnerability. "Mom, I've been thinking a lot about what you're doing with your cooking," Melissa began, her voice laced with an urgency that sent a shiver through Martha. "I know we've always had family meals that reflect our traditions, but I'm scared of pushing back. I want to explore my creative side too, but will you still find my choices valid if they're different?" In that moment, Martha understood the depth of her daughter's struggle. She faced the very same winds of change. "Melissa, I want you to know that your creativity is not just valid, it's essential," she replied, steadying her voice with newfound clarity. "Life isn't about fitting into molds. It's about breaking them and discovering what brings us joy." The words resonated within Martha, echoes of her recent transformations blending with the very essence of her culinary journey. But a flicker of insecurity crossed Melissa's face. "What if I get it wrong? What if you and Grandma don't approve?" Martha felt a familiar tightening in her chest, a reminder of the fear that had constrained her for years. "Make mistakes. They're essential in cooking and life. Remember, I'm evolving too. By adapting our family traditions, we can honor our roots while exploring something new together." With those words, a solid confidence built within her, a foundation she hoped would provide the reassurances Melissa sought. Melissa's eyes brightened, curiosity lacing her expression. "Really? So, you're okay with me trying new things? Like changing Grandma's beans recipe to include kale and cumin?" Martha laughed, the tension easing as she nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. If you find joy in experimenting, then I want to be a part of that. Let us create together. You'll teach me, and I'll teach you. We can craft a new culinary legacy that honors both our heritage and our aspirations." It was as if a light had switched on. That moment cemented Martha's transformation. She was not just a custodian of traditional recipes, but an advocate for mutual exploration and growth. She could feel a newfound kinship with Melissa blossoming, deepening their bond through a shared commitment to culinary discovery. Melissa leaned in, excitement dancing in her eyes. "So what's the next step? Can we start the first cooking night of our experiment once you're done with this new recipe for dinner?" "Absolutely. I'll prep something special tonight, and we can brainstorm together. Why not push the limits and see where it takes us?" Martha suggested, her voice rising with enthusiasm, having finally grasped her role as a facilitator in the evolution of her family's culinary tale. As they exchanged ideas, Martha could feel the walls that had separated her from her daughter slowly dissolving. They were no longer two solitary figures fighting against each other's expectations, but partners on a journey toward culinary evolution, crafting a bridge of understanding through the universal language of food. In those moments of sharing, Martha recognized that she had transformed not just in terms of cooking, she had redefined what it meant to be a mother. With each explanation, each taste tested, and each recipe reimagined. They celebrated ancestral wisdom and contemporary innovation hand in hand. As their conversation flowed, the anticipation of upcoming meals and memories rose like bread dough left to proof. Each idea became a thread woven into the fabric of their next family gathering, where tradition met modernity, ensuring they would carry the essence of love and creativity forward into their kitchen. The conversation concluded, but an inner peace enveloped Martha. Affirming her individual growth, she had conquered the fear of judgment. She embraced the dual role of both matriarch and mentor. In that cafe, just outside the chaotic world of familial expectations, Martha achieved her personal milestone, proving that change stems from dialogues that nourish connections rather than fracture them. With each step taken toward culinary authenticity, Martha felt deeply satisfied with her journey and excited about the path ahead. Now, she could see a future not merely tailored to tradition or innovation, but enriched by both a brilliant tapestry of flavors waiting to unfurl. Martha realized it was her moment to shine, her chance to revel in a legacy freshly crafted through growth and empowerment. She emerged lauded as a matriarch, an innovator willing to bridge desires, while her family embraced the bold new flavors of a redefined legacy. Now is the time a gentle wind of change has swept through Martha's life. The kitchen will transform into a bustling hub of creativity, where mutual support stands as the backbone for every meal and gathering to come. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share this journey of transformation.